Back in time, a long time ago, my grandparents, my great-grandparents were all to do with the sea. Started off as long lining for cod off the Kish Bank, and they fished for lobsters and crabs, and from then on to sea netting, which was a big innovation from Scotland and Denmark. And from that we went on to trawling. My father was at it for maybe 10 years or so. He eventually went to the Merchant Navy and died out in Lima, Peru in 1972, I think it was. That was the year I took up the fishing, and I never looked back. The openness of it, or the lack of regulations, or lack of everyone goes out together and work together. You work as a team rather than a boss. The skipper is the skipper. That goes without saying, but it's just a way of life, I suppose, and something that I enjoy. Back in the early 70s, 60s, 70s and 80s, there were plenty of fish around, any amount of fish. You could come in and land maybe 300 or 400 boxes a boat. Back when there was probably 60 or 70 or even up as high as 90 boats. And they were sold, there was a market for them. 70 or 80% of the fish sold on the pier in Holt, and there are 4 or 5 or 6 fish shops. 70% of the fish are brought in from all over the world, imported to Ireland, not even caught in Ireland, not even imported brought in from the west coast or the north coast, but brought in from Southeast Asia. You're competing in a market that's just, basically we can't compete with them, you know. The prices are so low. As the fella said, you'd have to love the job for to stick it, because there's certainly no money in it anymore. Most of the fleet now have 2 or maybe 3 Irishmen on them, a crew of 8 or 9. It's all changed, and as I say, the work is just not there. When you retired from fishing years ago, there was always something on the pier when you retired from fishing to do, but there's no jobs even at that. We were fishing away on Saturday morning, and we got snared on something. We thought it might be just a lump of hard ground or a stone or something like that we got caught behind, but it turned out that it was something much heavier. When we eventually did come clear of it, there was none of the net left, just a few straggly ends of it. So it would cost the best end of 5,500 or 6,000 to replace, but we could be tied up long before we want to be. They started decommissioning five or 6 years ago. Quite a few boats went away then, but then they started decommissioning again in April of this year. But the whole idea is to reduce the fleet and to make what's left of the fleet to make it that it is a viable job that you can make a living at it. That's great in theory, and it probably will work, although there are those like myself who doubt it very much. There's 2 boats left in it, ourselves and another boat, and we're up for decommissioning shortly, and that would just leave 1 boat out of, I remember at the time here there was up to 90 boats in the harbour. It's just down to 1 now. So 90 boats back then with 5 and 6 and 7 men on the boats. You were talking 500, 600 people employed. Now you're talking 5 or 6 or 7 people employed. I think there's 5 in his boat and 4 in this one. That's 9 people. That's all that's left employed in the fishing in Holt. So on our school holidays, from the time I was about 8 or 9 year old, we'd go out maybe once a week, or maybe if the weather was really fine and that, but we were always out at sea. You worked 5 days, and Saturday morning then you came down and you left the nets ready for going to sea on Monday again. And the whole harbour would be a buzz. It's something you can't really describe. It was just a whole big family of fishermen, you know what I mean? Everybody knew everybody, and if a boat broke down, say, then the rest of the family sort of clubbed round, and nobody was left stuck. Sort of, it was. But now there's hardly the whole town has changed in the last 10 years or so. Whereas fishing was the main industry, it's no longer. It's a joke now, to be honest with you. All that's left of fishermen now is a few lads doing lobsters, fishing for lobsters and crabs, and they're only on very small boats. The sense of community is gone, with the exception of maybe a small few people. And basically most of who live in the town are strangers. As for the future, I don't see one in it. In a month or so we'll probably be out of the job myself. And at 60 years of age, I'm not going to find it easy finding another job. And my brother then is 64. The other 2 lads will have some chance. As I say, it's a job I love, but it's a job that's I'll be out of, I'd say, before the end of the year maybe. When it gets into your system, it's hard to get it out of it. Even I talk to the older people who have retired now, and they like nothing more than just to sit down and talk about fishing. Even though they could be out of it for 20 or 30 years, they still long for the sea, sort of thing. But unfortunately, we're being put out of a job that we thoroughly enjoy.